I wish you all a good day. Today, I want to tell you a story that happened in Millstone, Kansas, back in 2022. It was not loud or heroic, just no headlines and no speeches. Only one man in a quiet garage on Veterans Day fixing something that used to tick. I saw it with my own eyes, and even now I can still hear the distinct sound that came out of that deep silence. Now, let us begin. The parade was already warming up downtown. Drums were echoing between the brick storefronts, and brass horns were glinting in the pale morning light. Kids waved flags that were almost too big for their small hands. But out on the edge of town, in a garage that smelled strongly of oil and sawdust, Tom Garvey sat alone at his workbench. He was in his 60s now, with thick hands, a weathered face, and a posture shaped by many years spent under the hood of military vehicles. On the wall behind him hung the ghosts of that life. There were faded unit patches, a few medals, a wrench the size of his forearm, and a photo of 5 young men squinting into the desert sun. In the photo, one of them, Dean Morrow, was holding a brass pocket watch up to the camera, grinning wide. The same watch now lay on Tom's workbench, cracked and completely silent. He adjusted his magnifier, the glass rim catching a streak of winter light. The gears inside the watch looked delicate, almost fragile, nothing like the heavy machines he used to fix in the desert. Still, he handled them the same way, very steady, patient, and reverent. He murmured under his breath, "All right, kid, let us see what is left of you." He unscrewed the backplate, the motion practiced but careful, like peeling open an old wound that still remembered how to ache. Outside, faint music drifted through the window, a marching cadence, trumpets, and the thump of boots on pavement. It was the sound of celebration, of pride. Tom did not look up. He had his own kind of ceremony right there. The second hand was stuck at 9:47. He had tried to wind it before, but it refused to move, almost like it knew exactly when to stop. He had found it years ago, tucked into a box of old deployment gear. The inscription on the back was worn, but he did not need to read it. It said, "To PFC Dean Morrow, keep it tickin', from Tom." He had given it to Dean before the convoy rolled out that morning outside Mosul. Dean never brought it back from that place. The parade outside grew louder, closer. There was laughter, horns, and the long breath of a trumpet solo. Tom stayed where he was. The sound did not reach him, not really. He pulled a small gear from the case, turning it under the light. Sand had eaten its edge long ago. He cleaned it with a cotton swab, slow and deliberate. The metal gleamed for a moment before dulling again. He was not trying to make it new, just whole enough to remember. The garage door creaked. A voice called for Mr. Garvey. Tom did not look up. He just said the door was open. A boy stepped in. He was a kid from down the street, maybe 12 years old, wearing a baseball cap and curiosity-like armor. His name was Eli. He was always asking questions, always poking around old things. Eli said, edging closer, that his mom mentioned Tom used to fix tanks or something. Tom grunted, affirming it was something like that. The boy's eyes darted from the medals on the shelf to the photograph on the wall. He asked if Tom was going to the parade. Tom twisted a screwdriver between his fingers. He replied that he already got his parade right here. Eli frowned. He wondered if that thing even worked. Tom's lips twitched into the ghost of a smile. He said, "Not yet." Eli leaned in. He wanted to know what was special about it. Tom hesitated. Then, softly, he said, "It used to belong to someone who could make time stop just by laughing." Eli blinked. He asked if Tom meant something like magic. Tom said it was something close, the kind you do not see until it is gone. His eyes were still fixed on the gears. The kid fell quiet, watching as Tom used a pair of tweezers to drop a spring into place. His movements were slow, methodical. Each click, each turn felt like part of a ritual. Outside, the sound of the parade filtered through again. There was muffled brass, steady drums, the kind of rhythm that made you want to stand up straight. But Tom did not move. He pressed the crown of the watch gently. Nothing, just stillness. Eli broke the silence. He guessed it was dead. Tom's voice was barely above a whisper. He said it was not dead, just waiting to be remembered. He lifted the balance wheel with the tweezers, brushed away a speck of dust, then, with steady hands and held breath, set it back in place. The second hand trembled. Once, twice, then it began to move. Tick, tick, tick. Eli gasped. He shouted, "Hey, it is working." Tom leaned back, his eyes softening, the faintest smile breaking through. He said, "Yeah," quietly. He guessed it still remembers. The ticking filled the space between them, gentle but steady. It was the kind of sound that did not just mark time, it carried it. Tom let it run, his gaze flicking to the photo on the wall. Dean's grin looked younger than ever. Outside, the parade passed the end of the street. The music drifted through the cracked window, bright, proud, and full of life. Inside, Tom's workshop glowed in the warm light of late morning. The watch kept perfect rhythm, its heartbeat steady against the hum of the town. Eli looked up at him. He asked, "So, what happens now?" Tom glanced at the watch, then at the boy. He replied, "Now we keep it running." And for the first time in years, Tom Garvey smiled like a man who had finally caught up to time. By afternoon, the parade was winding down. The last of the flags drifted past Tom's house. There were fire trucks, high school bands, and veterans waving from flatbeds. The sound faded into the distance, replaced by something quieter, the rhythmic tick, tick, tick from Tom's workbench. Eli was still there, sitting on an overturned crate, swinging his legs. He had not said much since the watch came back to life. He just watched it, wide-eyed, like it might start speaking. Tom cleaned his tools, lining them back up with the precision of a man who once measured his life by torque specs and convoy checklists. The habit of order never left him. Eli said finally that he thought Veterans Day was supposed to be about going outside with parades and speeches and all that. Tom did not look up. He said, "Some of us do our remembering in here." Eli asked if it was because of that guy, Dean. The old man's hands paused mid-motion. He gave a short nod. "Yes, because of him." For a moment, the sound of the ticking filled the silence between them. Then, Tom set down his wrench and leaned back, his eyes drifting to the photo above the bench. He said Dean was 21. You could not tell him anything. He was always smiling, even when he should not have been. He used to say that if time was gonna run out, you might as well make it chase you. Eli grinned faintly. He sounded like a good guy. Tom confirmed he was. He rubbed his thumb against a scar just above his wrist. That watch, he carried it everywhere. He said it kept him grounded. The day it happened, his voice trailed off, and for a long moment he did not finish. He did not have to. The garage seemed to dim a little, like the light itself bent toward memory. He was back there again. The desert sun, the engine heat, the hum of the convoy, sand whipping across their faces, the taste of metal in the air. Dean had been driving the lead vehicle, humming some old country song through the radio static. Tom remembered laughing, something about the tune being older than their sergeant. Then the flash, a sound too big to fit inside a memory, and a silence after it that felt alive. He remembered running, smoke, sand, shouting. He remembered kneeling beside what was left of the truck, and the watch, somehow unbroken, lying a few feet away, still ticking. He had picked it up without thinking. When the medevac left, he had slipped it into his pocket. He never told anyone why. Back in the garage, the clock on the wall read 2:15. The light outside had shifted to gold. Eli was staring at him, quiet now. Tom cleared his throat. He said that life's struggles are funny that way. You think it is about action, but it is really about what happens after. The part where you try to make sense of all the things that did not get to finish. Eli looked at the watch, still ticking steadily. He asked if fixing it makes it better. Tom gave a small, wary smile. No, it just keeps the hurt from rusting. They sat in silence a while longer. Then Eli pointed toward the medals on the wall. He asked if he could ask something. Tom said, sure. Eli wondered why Tom did not hang those in his house. His mom says people should see stuff like that. Tom chuckled softly. Medals do not mean what you think they do. They do not shine the same once you know what they cost. The boy frowned, confused. But you earned them. Tom said, yeah, so did they. His eyes flicked to the photo again. 5 faces, frozen in sunlit dust. 4 gone. 1 left to remember. Eli stood, walked over, and looked at the picture more closely. He asked if Tom was the one in the middle. Tom smiled, just a flicker. No, that is Dean. I am the one behind the camera. Eli said, oh. He paused. He asked if they were friends. Tom said simply, family. The word hung in the air a long time, warm and heavy. Eli turned toward the open garage door, watching the wind carry stray bits of parade confetti down the street. He asked if Tom ever missed it, the army. Tom exhaled, slow and long. I miss the people, not the noise. Eli asked what he does when he misses them. Tom tapped the pocket watch lightly with his thumb. I listen. The ticking was soft but steady, alive in a way only something old and mended could be. Eli nodded slowly, then looked down at his sneakers. He said his dad says remembering stuff hurts, and he does not talk about Grandpa much. Tom studied him for a moment. He asked if his granddad served. Eli said yeah, in Vietnam. His mom says he did not like the fireworks after that. Tom's gaze softened. No one really does. Eli looked back at the workbench. He asked, so you keep fixing things? Tom nodded. That is the job. Keep the gears turning. Keep time moving forward. The boy thought about that, quiet for a long moment, then asked if he could help. Tom raised an eyebrow. He asked if Eli knew what he was doing. Eli said no, grinning, but he could learn. Tom considered him, then pushed a small rag across the table. He told him to start by cleaning these screws. Do not lose any, they are older than you. Eli nodded solemnly and got to work. He cleaned each piece with exaggerated care, tongue between his teeth. Tom watched him, hiding a smile. Something loosened in the air then, a kind of quiet that did not ache as much. The sound of two people doing something simple, something careful, something alive. The sunlight shifted again, sliding lower through the window, scattering reflections of red and white onto the workbench. The parade had passed, but the day was not done remembering. After a while, Eli held up one of the cleaned screws like a small trophy. He announced it was done. Tom reached for it, eyes soft. Good work. That is how it starts. Eli tilted his head. How? What starts? Tom placed the screw carefully into the watch casing, remembering. Outside, the faint echo of a bugle carried through the wind. Taps played somewhere down the street at the memorial park. Eli did not speak. Neither did Tom. The sound lingered, folding into the ticking of the watch until the two rhythms became one, the steady beat of memory refusing to fade. When the last note dissolved into quiet, Tom whispered, asking if Eli heard that. Yeah. Tom smiled faintly. That is the sound of time still keeping faith. The next morning broke cold and gray, one of those November days when the air feels like it is holding its breath. Tom stood in the doorway of his garage, coffee steaming in his hand. The parade banners were gone, the streets quiet again. Only a few bits of confetti clung to the wet pavement, fluttering like ghosts of yesterday's noise. Inside, the pocket watch sat open on the bench, still ticking. Its steady rhythm filled the quiet space, but Tom did not move toward it. He just listened. There was a time that sound had comforted him. Now it just asked questions. He sat down at the bench, eyes tracing the dent in the brass casing. The gears gleamed faintly under the lamp. The thing was perfect, balanced, whole, obedient. And yet, something about it felt wrong. It was not his watch anymore. It was Dean's heartbeat, looping endlessly, caught in time. A sound from the past that refused to fade. He reached out, closed the lid, and the ticking muffled. The silence that followed was heavier than he expected. He whispered, "You were supposed to stop." The door creaked open behind him. It was Eli again, hoodie, backpack, same boundless curiosity. He said, "Morning, Mr. Garvey." Tom did not turn. He noted Eli was up early. Eli said he had to see if the watch was still alive. Tom managed a faint smile. Alive is one word for it. The boy came closer, eyes lighting up at the sight of the polished metal. He saw Tom finished it. Tom said, "Yeah, it runs like it should." Eli tilted his head. He noted Tom did not sound happy about it. Tom hesitated. He asked if Eli had ever fixed something and it works, but it feels wrong anyway. Eli frowned, like homework. Tom chuckled under his breath. Close enough. He set the watch down between them. "This thing, I thought if I could make it work again, it would make something else right too. But it does not. It just keeps reminding me who is missing. Eli looked down at the ticking. Dean? Tom nodded. Dean. And the others. 5 of us went out that day. 2 came back. The boy's voice was small. He asked what happened. Tom's eyes went distant, gray as the morning outside. A roadside device. We never saw it. I remember the dust, the sound, like a giant hand slammed the sky shut. Dean was driving the lead truck. When I got to him, the watch was still ticking. He was not. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Eli whispered, "That is why he kept it." Tom nodded. You spend enough time fixing broken things, you start thinking maybe you can fix that kind of broken too. He picked up the watch again, turning it in his palm. But maybe it is not meant to be fixed. Eli blinked. He asked if Tom meant he would let it stop. Tom hesitated. The idea hurt more than he expected. He set the watch down, face up, ticking steady. Maybe it is time I let it rest. The boy thought for a long moment. Dean would not want that. Tom's gaze softened. You did not know him. Eli said no, but I know you. You fixed it for a reason. If you stop it, it is like you are saying he does not get remembered anymore. Tom looked up, meeting the boy's eyes. The kid was not wrong, but the words hit deep, harder than any sermon or speech ever had. They sat there a while, listening to the watch tick. The rhythm shifted in Tom's head, less a reminder, more a presence, a pulse. He closed his eyes and the desert came back. Not the explosion this time, but the quieter moments before it. The heat, the laughter. Dean tuning a radio that barely worked, grinning as if he could charm the airwaves into cooperating. Dean had said to keep it ticking when Tom handed him the watch before that mission. He joked that if Tom broke it, he would be haunted. Tom laughed quietly at the memory. It sounded lighter now, even kind. When he opened his eyes, Eli was still there, studying him carefully. Tom said maybe he was right. Maybe it is not about fixing it for me. Eli tilted his head. Then who is it for? Tom looked at him, something forming behind the eyes. It was an idea, a surrender, a peace long overdue. That evening, the sky broke open in color, sunset bleeding orange and gold across the rooftops. The garage windows caught it, filling the space with warm light. Tom stood at his bench one last time, wiping the face of the watch clean with a soft cloth. The brass shone brighter than it had in years. Eli hovered nearby. He asked if Tom was giving it back to his family. Tom shook his head. Dean did not have any left, just me. And now, he looked at Eli. The boy's eyes widened. He said, "Wait, you mean?" Tom smiled, a real one this time. Someone has got to keep it running. Eli froze. Me? Tom said, yeah. You already know how to treat it, right? Gentle, patient, that is all it needs. The boy did not answer right away. His fingers hovered over the watch like it was a living thing. He worried, what if I mess it up? Tom's voice softened. Then you fix it. That is the point. He placed the watch in the boy's palm. The ticking continued, steady, alive, faintly warm from the old man's hand. Eli stared at it, awed. He said, "It is loud." Tom smiled. "That is not loud, kid. That is just time telling you it is still here. After Eli left, Tom stayed in the doorway, watching the boy disappear down the street, his hands cupped around the watch like he was carrying fire. For the first time in years, Tom did not feel the pull of guilt in his chest. The sound that used to haunt him now belonged to someone else, someone who could carry it forward. He looked up at the horizon, the last light spilling gold across Millstone, and whispered that he is in good hands, Dean. The garage was quiet again. No ticking, no parade, no ghosts. Just peace. Tom closed the door behind him, and for the first time in 2 decades, he stepped outside, not to escape, but to breathe. The next morning, Millstone woke to the kind of cold that made breath visible. Frost edged the windows. The trees along Main Street were bare, branches silvered with ice. Tom walked down the driveway slower than usual, a knit cap pulled low over his ears, the weight of a quiet night still clinging to him. He had not slept much, not from pain, but something else, something gentler. The garage door was open, the empty bench waiting. The absence of the watch hit him like silence after years of background noise. He caught himself listening for it. No ticking. And strangely, that silence did not ache. It felt right. He stepped inside, ran a hand along the workbench, feeling the oil, the sawdust, the faint grooves from years of fixing things that mattered to someone. Dean would have laughed at him, he thought. You, old man, giving up your tools? Tom smiled faintly. Not giving up, kid, just passing them forward. Around noon, the sound of sneakers scuffing against concrete came from outside. Eli appeared at the door, cheeks red from the cold, grinning like he had just discovered something important. Mr. Garvey. Tom turned. Morning. You look like you ran here. Eli said he did. The boy held out his hand. The pocket watch gleamed in his palm, bright against his mitten. It stopped. Tom blinked. Stopped. Eli nodded, sheepish. I forgot to wind it last night. I thought I broke it. He held it out like a confession. Tom took it gently, opened the lid. The hands were still, frozen at 11:17. Don't worry, Tom said. Even time needs rest now and then. He wound it twice, then paused. Here, your turn. Eli hesitated. What if I do it wrong? Then you will learn. Go on. The boy took it carefully, thumb trembling against the crown. He turned it once, twice, then froze as the second hand twitched to life. Tick, tick, tick. He grinned wide. It is working. Tom nodded. You see, it never needed me, just someone willing to listen. They sat together in the garage, the old man and the kid, the watch ticking steadily between them. The sound filled the space like a heartbeat. Eli asked if Tom really thought it remembers him, Dean. Tom looked at the brass case reflecting the winter light. Yeah, not like a ghost. More like a song that keeps playing as long as someone hums it. Eli tilted his head. You ever stop hearing it? Tom smiled faintly. Never. I just stopped hiding from it. Outside, a soft wind pushed through the neighborhood, carrying the faint sound of a flag snapping somewhere down the street. The town square was holding its second day of Veterans Day events, a candlelight vigil, a local choir, the kind of ceremony Tom used to avoid. He looked toward the sound, then back at the boy. "You should go," he said. "They will be lighting candles soon." Eli frowned. "You are not coming?" Tom hesitated. For 20 years, he had not stepped foot near a memorial. He had convinced himself remembrance belonged to others, to parades, to speeches, to walls with names carved deep enough to swallow the light. But now, looking at the boy and the ticking watch in his hand, he felt something shift. Not guilt, not duty, something simpler. Permission. "I think I might," he said finally. "Could use a little fresh air." Eli smiled. "I will save you a spot." Dusk settled slow over Millstone. The sun dipped low behind the courthouse roof, turning the town square to amber. Candles flickered in paper cups, faces glowing soft in the light. Tom stood near the back at first, hat in hand, blending into the crowd. He could hear the soft murmur of names being read, steady, reverent, a rhythm of loss and gratitude intertwined. Eli spotted him, waved him forward. Tom stepped up just far enough to see the reflection of the candles in the boy's watch chain. The same chain Dean used to wear. He swallowed hard. Then, quietly, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small, a dog tag, edges worn smooth by time. He had not touched it in years. He slipped it off the ring and pressed it into Eli's palm beside the watch. Eli looked up, confused. Tom's voice was steady. "That belonged to Dean. Keep them together. The tag and the watch. They belong to each other now." The boy's eyes softened. He asked if Tom was sure. Tom said, "Yeah, I think he would like where it ended up." The choir began to sing, low, solemn, the kind of song that holds stillness between every note. Tom stood beside Eli, both of them watching the small flame dance in the watch's reflection. The ticking matched the rhythm of the hymn. For the first time in years, the sound did not pull him backward. It carried him forward. He could almost feel Dean beside him. No words, no ghosts, just presence. As the final verse faded, the crowd bowed their heads in silence. The flag above them caught the last breath of daylight, its fabric glowing red-gold against the sky. Tom lifted his eyes and whispered, just loud enough for the wind to catch it, "Keep it tickin', kid." Eli glanced up. "What?" Tom smiled. "Nothing, just a promise I made once." When the candles were snuffed and the crowd began to scatter, Tom stayed for a while, watching the emptying square. The air smelt faintly of wax and smoke, the kind of scent that lingers. He felt no weight in his chest, just warmth. Dean's watch was in good hands now, and for the first time since that desert morning long ago, Tom did not feel left behind. He was exactly where time wanted him to be, caught between the fading light and the sound of something still running true. Morning came quiet after the vigil. The world seemed slower, as if the town itself was catching its breath. The air smelled faintly of cold ash and wet leaves. The flags on Main Street hung limp after the night's rain. Tom Garvey sat on his porch, coffee in hand, eyes on the horizon. The sky was pale blue, washed clean. For once, the silence did not bother him. It felt earned. He could still hear it, though, faint and steady in his memory. That watch, that heartbeat, tick, tick, tick. It did not haunt him anymore. It hummed like something alive, something continuing. A knock came at the porch rail. Eli stood there, grinning, a small paper bag in hand. He said his mom made muffins and said he should bring Tom one before she ate them all. Tom smiled. "Your mom is a wise woman." Eli sat beside him, pulling the watch from his pocket. He said proudly, "Still running." Tom nodded, watching the second hand sweep across the face. "Looks like you have been keeping it in line." Eli said he winds it every morning now, even when he is late for school. Tom raised an eyebrow. "Is that right?" The boy said, "Yeah, it feels weird if I don't, like time is waiting for me to start it." Tom chuckled softly. "That is how it should feel. It is not about keeping time perfect. It is about keeping it yours." Eli looked thoughtful. He asked if Tom really thinks Dean can hear it. Tom sipped his coffee, gaze distant but calm. If there is any sound that carries past this world, it is that one. Not because it is loud, but because it keeps going. For a while, they just sat. The boy fidgeting, the old man still. The watch ticked between them, marking not just seconds, but something deeper, continuity perhaps. Eli finally broke the silence. He said, "They are learning about veterans in class next week." The teacher asked if anyone had a story. Tom smiled. "You volunteering me?" Eli shook his head. "Nah, I would tell it myself." He lifted the watch slightly. "About him and you and fixing things." Tom's voice was gentle. "What will you tell them?" Eli thought for a long time. Then he said that time does not stop for anyone, but you can still take care of it. Tom looked at him, really looked, and something in his face softened, like a door finally closing the way it was meant to. Later that afternoon, the sun came out, one of those bright, clean Kansas afternoons that makes everything feel sharper. Tom walked down to the square. The bunting from the parade still hung there, damp but holding color. The memorial stones glistened faintly where rain had washed them. He placed his hand on the name he had avoided for 20 years. PFC Dean Morrow. He stood there a long time, letting the warmth of the stones seep into his palm. He murmured that, "The boy is doing all right, kid. Watch still ticking. You will like him." A soft gust of wind rolled through the square, carrying the faint clang of the flagpole against its metal bracket. A small sound, but enough. He smiled. "Yeah, I know. You are welcome." That evening, the light turned honey gold. From his porch, Tom could see Eli down the street, showing the watch to a cluster of kids, explaining something with wide gestures. Laughter carried on the wind, light and quick. Tom leaned back in his chair, eyes half closed. For the first time in decades, he did not feel like a man living after something. He felt like a man living with something. He let out a slow breath, the kind that feels like release. Inside the garage, the workbench sat as he left it, orderly, quiet, waiting. The empty towel where the watch once rested caught the last slant of sunset. The light flickered once, reflected off a single photograph tacked to the wall. 5 soldiers, young and grinning, the desert wind in their faces. Dean's hand on the shoulder of the man behind the camera. The faint reflection of the flag from outside rippled across the frame, red, white, blue, and then faded as the sun slipped lower. That night, Tom dreamed of the convoy again. But this time there was no explosion. Just 5 trucks rolling steady across open desert, the engines purring like a heartbeat, the sound blending with a faint ticking that matched the rhythm of the road. In the dream, Dean looked over his shoulder, smiled, and mouthed something simple. "Still ticking." Tom woke smiling. The next morning, the watch's sound reached him before Eli even arrived. Soft, confident, steady as breath. He stepped outside, the air bright and cold, and watched the boy coming down the street, the chain glinting in the sunlight. "Morning, Mr. Garvey." Tom raised a hand in greeting. "Morning, Eli. How is time treating you?" Eli grinned. "It is keeping up." The two of them walked toward town together, side by side, the echo of the ticking faint but sure between them. And as they passed the corner where the parade had started days ago, the wind caught the last bit of bunting and lifted it high, just for a moment, a flash of color against the winter sky. It fluttered, settled, and the town fell quiet again. Except for that one sound. Tick, tick, tick.